It's two of the big towering world leaders, Donald Trump and Narendra Modi, who will be meeting tomorrow in Osaka, Japan at the G20 meet. Ahead of the highly anticipated bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the G20 summit, President Trump has hardened America's stand against India. US President took to Twitter to speak about India-US trade turmoil on the back of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's otherwise successful visit to India. In his tweet, which has surprised many, President Trump asked India to lower its tariff structure on US products, calling it unacceptable. India, however, has refuted Donald Trump's claim and said that India's tariffs are not that high compared to other developing countries. India's move to increase tariffs came as a retaliation to Trump administration's plan to discontinue New Delhi as a preferential trade partner, which affected India's exports to the tune of $5.6 billion. President Trump will meet Prime Minister Modi in Japan tomorrow, and on the table will no doubt be the trade friction that has intensified between both these countries.
This is a unilateral measures that they have been taking. They have been trying to bulldoze India like the other countries, but that is not going to happen. Because if it is going to be in our national interest, we are going to follow what is in our national interest. The problem with the Trump administration is that they do not believe in any international organizations for which US has been a clear party, which has been the founding member, and they want to decimate the whole international organizational structure.
Well, as the countdown begins to the Modi-Trump meet, we thought we must bring you a little snippet of the Modi-Trump world-renowned bonhomie. Some even called it bromance. Because remember, the topics up for discussion when Modi and Trump meet tomorrow in Osaka, Japan, are of global importance. Trade and immigration, stuff that affects millions of people on both sides. Remember, Trump was the first among all world leaders to congratulate Prime Minister Modi on his recent spectacular victory in the just concluded Lok Sabha elections. The question is body language and that friendship between Modi and Trump going to translate into the ability to solve these Indo-US problems?
I am a big fan of Hindu and I am a big fan of India. Big fan. Big fan. Let me start by stating right up front that if I'm elected president, the Indian and Hindu community will have a true friend in the White House. That I can guarantee you, that I can tell you.
They are in the middle of an aggressive war over trade and immigration. But when Donald Trump became the president, he made a promise. He guaranteed India and the Indian community would have a friend in the White House. His counterpart in India reciprocated with a friendly phone call. And what followed was Trump-Modi bonhomie for the world to witness. Their friendship spread from real life to Twitter. That friendship is now under test. And before the two leaders meet in Osaka, Japan at the G20 summit, all eyes are on the friction. While there are concerns over Trump tightening immigration policies and choking the H-1B visa program, Team Modi believes it can find a common ground for what's best for both the nations. Both the leaders have since then agreed to work to strengthen bilateral ties, increasing the diplomatic visits to each other's country.
मुझे विश्वास है कि मेरा न्यू इंडिया का विजन तथा राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अमेरिका के विजन में निहित कन्वर्जेंस हमारे सहयोग के नए आयाम पैदा करेगी.
Since India opened its economy, it has achieved astounding growth and a new world of opportunity for its expanding middle class. And Prime Minister Modi has been working to bring that vast country and all of its people together as one.
It was Donald Trump who was among the first to congratulate Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his landslide victory in the recent Lok Sabha election. and even declared only Modi can further strengthen Indo-US ties. With the tariff war, which has emerged as a sticking point, will Modi and Trump, two powerful personalities, see more friction or more friendship? Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, let's just very simply break down for you what the major sticking points and outstanding issues between India and the US are when Modi and Trump actually meet on the sidelines of the G20 summit tomorrow in Osaka, Japan. These are the bilateral issues that are on the table right now. Trade, 142 billion US purchases. That's 1/5 of India's exports. US oil exports in 2018 were 50 million barrels. US defense sales in 2019 were 18 billion. Indian students in the US in 2018 to 2019, 196,000. H-1B visas to Indians, 70% of the total. Now, this is the reason. This gives you a sense of what the sticking points are. They're basically about trade and as far as immigration is concerned and the stranglehold on H-1B visas. I want to bring in our executive editor Gaurav Sawant and our foreign affairs editor Geeta Mohan for more on this. Gaurav, to you first. These are issues that are, that both have far-reaching consequences for millions of people, millions of communities on both sides, trade as well as immigration. So in many ways, when Modi and Trump meet tomorrow, there are going to be very high expectations that both these very powerful leaders can do something to break the stalemate.
It is, and especially when both are considered very close, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump, both are hard-nosed, businessmen, apart from being politicians in this context. But there are also other issues, Shiv, which are extremely crucial. Trade is a bargaining chip. It's a bargaining chip because remember, you know well, it's the S-400, the missile system. America doesn't want India to buy a missile system from Russia, and India says, well, we will go and buy ahead because that's required for India. There's also oil from Iran. So trade becomes a part of that bargaining chip. In this entire business, and India had to put retaliatory tariffs. So it was the US which first imposed tariffs on aluminium and steel from India. In retaliation, now India has put tariffs which Donald Trump has just tweeted saying it's too high on almonds, on apples, on lentils, and a number of other issues. But these can be negotiated. What about the S-400s?
Yes.
What about Iran oil?
Absolutely. So there are outstanding issues as far as Iran is concerned. In a moment, I'm going to get you a full story on the defense sweeteners that are coming, India and US's way in terms of the military trade partnership. But Geeta, Secretary Pompeo, and we're going to play out our exclusive interview with him in just a moment. He was here for a couple of days. The statements given out by Secretary Pompeo and Minister Jaishankar were very sober, but they were also very hopeful. They were very understanding in nature, and anyone who read those statements, would be left thinking that, okay, these are two powerful countries that have understood each other's problems, and they've at least agreed to address these concerns and work together for a common ground. But then everyone saw President Trump's tweet, and now everything's up in the air again.
Well, that's right, Shiv. More than understanding, they were more realistic in nature. Secretary Pompeo, in an interview to us yesterday, very clearly said that there are many countries that U.S. does not have a trade war with. It's because they're not trading with those countries.
Yeah.
When you have relationships and economic ties that go that deep between India and the United States of America, then it is obvious that there would be differences. Both sides are working on the differences. But behind those smiles of Jaishankar and Pompeo lies this very tense moment that India and United States of America are having right now. And I beg to differ a little from Gaurav, Shiv, that this time around trade is not just a bargaining chip. It is the focus and the central point of Donald Trump, the US president's ultimate agenda. If you see the tweet, it's very clear that this messaging and this the tariff and trade war between India and the mini trade war between India and the United States of America is kind of going to overshadow the talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Donald Trump. He is going to put forth his viewpoint that the imbalance of trade advantage advantages to India, disadvantages to the US has to be addressed. India on its part is going to put its foot down on many things like it did on S-400, that if there has to be an agreement, a negotiation, then India will look at its own interests, and in that there has to be a meeting ground, that there has to be some give and take, or one country cannot gain all, and US certainly cannot think that over here right now it's in a position where it can gain all and leave India with nothing.
Okay, it has to be a solution. You know, when that handshake and that hug happens, I'm sure there's going to be a Modi-Trump photo opportunity tomorrow where there will be a hug after the handshake, but it has to reach something substantive. We're talking about the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy, and there is too much at stake for this to be simply left to unpredictable chance. We're talking about two of the most powerful countries in the world. The US Secretary of State, like Geeta was telling us, Mike Pompeo, spoke exclusively to India today on Wednesday, where he underplayed the trade tensions between the two countries. Pompeo was in all praise for India and said that the relationship between India and the US is only getting stronger. Listen.
You share a value set, a democratic value set with the United States of America. And your people engage with Americans at every level, all across the world, in the United States, in India, and other places too. What we spent a lot of time talking about today was how we can truly make this a different age, a different time. We can be more ambitious in our relationship. And so these issues, the trade issues, military issues, defense cooperation issues, we make those positives. I'm confident that we can, and I know President Trump is committed to that as well.
Gaurav, coming back to you, anyone who saw that interview with Secretary Pompeo, the first thing you would notice is he's all praise for India. He's got good things to say, and anyone who heard the words that came out of the Secretary of State's mouth would think that, yes, we've got problems, but, Modi and Trump have this, they can sort this out. That's the impression you would get.
Well, Modi and Trump need to sort this out because a lot depends on the India-US relationship. And as Secretary Pompeo, told Rachingappa yesterday that if you don't have trade, there will be no differences. So there are differences. There's no win. There is no, winner takes all and loser loses all. There will be some win-win. There will be some lose-lose. Remember, even when it came to the Harley-Davidsons, because the US president was so keen on Harley-Davidsons, India did reduce tariffs on the motorcycles from 100% to 50%. But when it came to the US, now the US president is very concerned about trade imbalance being so much in India's favor. So he's put tariffs on aluminium, and he's put on steel. So India has retaliated with tariffs on apples, on lentils, on so many other things. So that is where they need to come together and find common meeting ground. So that is what these negotiations will be all about.
And what that common meeting ground is going to be very interesting. Geeta, new External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, an old America hand, also an old China hand, a person entrusted with the unenviable task of sort of leading India's foreign affairs mantra forward, balancing both China as well as the United States. In many ways, on Prime Minister Modi's shoulders will also be the able guidance of this new foreign minister in Jaishankar.
Well, that's right. The External Affairs Minister has a very tough task ahead to balance ties between India and China and India and the United States of America. Much of what we are seeing play out when it comes to India and US is in many ways a repercussion of the bigger trade war between US and China, Shiv, because look at the kind of imbalance of trade we're talking about. We're talking about only billions over here between India and the United States of America, whereas the imbalance of trade between US and China, including India and US, run into trillions. So that's the bigger war over here. And India right now, even as it's trying to balance its ties between these two countries, what Jaishankar will have to focus on is fix it, put India and US on the right trajectory again, look at the military ties that the two countries have, the strategic aspirations that both countries have vis-a-vis all other countries in in the region, and also look at how best they can move economically ahead. China is going to be an important partner.
Yes.
There's a realization that India cannot put all its eggs in the American basket, or for that matter in the Chinese basket, and hence Jaishankar's statement yesterday was significant, Shiv, when he said all India is going to do is look at her own national interest.
Okay, national interest, those two words are going to be on everyone's mind tomorrow when Modi meets with Trump. Let's see if there are going to be any big takeaways, any big breakthroughs. You know, one thing that we can say for sure, and I know that Gaurav and Geeta agree with me on this, is that the old way of doing diplomacy has gone completely out of the window. With leaders like Modi and Trump, everything is up in the air. You know, these are leaders who can take overnight decisions that have far-reaching consequences. So we will literally have to wait until the two leaders meet to see if it's going to be all about procedure and watch and wait and all of that, or is it going to be really just bell the cat and fix these differences between the two countries. Geeta and Gaurav, thank you so much for bringing us those inputs on this developing story. Now, Geeta mentioned military ties. Now, while there is friction and there are unresolved disputes between India and the US as far as immigration and trade is concerned, the fact is India and the US have a lot of goodwill and a lot of positivity going when it comes to the world of military trade, because in the next 2 to 3 years, India stands to place orders worth in excess of $10 billion of US-built weapons and weapon systems for the Indian Armed Forces. Take a look.
As the two world leaders get set to shake hands again, this time in Osaka, Japan, the two big elephants in the room are quite clear. The unresolved friction in trade relations and immigration between the world's largest and the world's oldest democracies. But as Modi and Trump converge at the G20, the India-US relationship is positively booming on another front. You guessed it, it's the arena of military trade. Because while Delhi and Washington work to resolve disputes in trade and immigration, India is all set to order American military hardware worth over $10 billion spread over the next 2 years. The list of deals in the pipeline are all big ticket. They include 30 armed Sea Guardian drones that will be split evenly between the Indian Air Force, Army and Navy, and will be India's first armed unmanned air vehicles with capabilities that exceed those of US Predators. The Indian Navy is also in position to order 10 more Boeing P-8I aircraft for long-range surveillance and anti-submarine missions. The Indian government is also pushing ahead with an order for 24 Lockheed Martin MH-60R Seahawk helicopters worth $2.6 billion to urgently replace its old Sea King fleet. The Indian Ministry of Defence also recently approved movement towards the acquisition of the US National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System for air defence of Indian cities, including the national capital. This comes amidst pressure from US to cancel an order for S-400 systems from Russia, though India has said it will not do so. Finally, a follow-on order of 6 Apache attack helicopters for the Indian Army could be signed later this year, with deliveries to the Indian Air Force commencing next month. The big upcoming deals come on the back of just under $20 billion in arms sales from the US to India in just the last 12 years, making the defense trade a true sweetener of diplomatic relations between the two countries. So when Modi and Trump meet, hug and talk in Osaka, Japan, and as they attempt to resolve trade and immigration disputes, they will both know where to look for comfort, such as it is. Bureau Report, India Today.
And Gaurav, that's one place where there is no problem at all between India and the US. You know, 20 billion in defense deals since 2007, another 10 billion over the next 2 to 3 years, including the national, air defense system that India plans to buy to placate the United States owing to the S-400 deal with Russia. So as far as defense trade is concerned, no issues at all.
Absolutely not. And that's exactly, you hit the nail on its head when you say India is getting some of this equipment to placate the United States. Not to say that we don't need it. We do need all the defense equipment.
Yeah.
When it comes to the drones, when it comes to the Heptas, when it comes to the aircraft, when it comes to the long-range maritime aircraft and the missiles. But when it comes to placating the US, it is because India will go ahead with the S-400s. We've been speaking to our sources in the government and they're very clear. Much before these US restrictions came in, India was very clear India will buy the S-400s. It's almost close to a decade, you know better than anyone else. Close to a decade India has been trying to get the S-400 system. So this is where India will draw the red line, thus far and no further. Yes to S-400s. There may be a give on Iran oil, that's very clear.
Yes.
But otherwise, again, the effort will be to ensure that the world's oldest democracy, the world's largest democracy, get more convergence, less divergence.
Less divergence, more convergence, certainly happening as far as the military cooperation and trade is concerned. Let's see if Modi and Trump can hammer out a similar template as far as trade, tariffs and immigration are concerned tomorrow. All eyes on Modi and Trump. Gaurav, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.